You may have wondered just how serious will the heavy-handed intrusion of gun laws turn out between our police, state, federal government, and 100 million U.S. gun owners who have that right based upon the Second Amendment. We are witnessing an ever-tightening stranglehold of our constitutional rights under the tyrannical influence of the Obama administration. It started back in the summer of last year when then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton negotiated UN gun control over U.S. citizens through an international treaty. Apparently things didn't pan out too well with the powers that be, and she was not able to muster enough support from either political party on Capitol Hill. Suddenly and without warning, just weeks later, the Aurora movie theater shooting exploded onto the headlines. Then the Sikh temple shootings quickly followed. Each time, the mass media attempted to tie the tragedies to the Tea Party unsuccessfully. Mass shootings seem synchronized with gun control agenda. Remember, never let a crisis go to waste. A succession of senseless mass shootings followed Aurora and Sikh, each a little crazier than the last, each a little harder to believe than the last, until we come to the Sandy Hook Elementary shootings. With so many contradictions in facts, different numbers of shooters, different officially announced weapons used, the coincidental existence of hired crisis actors, Robbie Parker, a supposed parent of one slain little child, laughing and joking before appearing on camera, then hyperventilating and making himself act as though he was bereaved. Then there was the mistaken slip of a supposed victim of the shooting who was shown alive and well in a surviving family's photo. Could all these shooting incidences have been orchestrated to promote the disarming of the American public? Many experts are now asking that same question and getting resistance from the U.S. mass media. Another conspiracy theory. Oh, how dare you. The events leading up to this strong push by Dianne Feinstein of California to impose gun control smacks of Machiavellian ruthlessness. The White House views the lives of its antagonists as expendable. The Obama administration has proven in the wake of many violations of the Constitution, gun walking, ordering stand-downs to U.S. rescuers during the Benghazi attacks, entering into war with Libya without congressional approval, the mysterious deaths of Andrew Breitbart and the forensics expert Michael Cormier, who autopsied him. This is one ruthless government that values human life very little. The gun control issue is not about trying to make our streets and neighborhoods safer. It is about control over the populace and even more. The government seems poised to make a move, possibly using the U.S. Army to force disarmament of U.S. citizens on the eve of this fiscal law. Already signing the infamous NDAA S.1867 law, which allowed the U.S. Army to be used to pursue terrorism within a domestic zone of the U.S. and detain suspects indefinitely. Connect the dots, do the math. The recent acquisition of millions of hollow point bullets by the TSA and the DHS is another troubling development that has raised eyebrows among inquiring minds as well as investigative sources. When putting all these factors together within very short chronological order of each other, it is hard not to draw ominous conclusions that an accelerated power grab is in full swing that mirrors the pre-World War II situation in Germany. There, Hitler orchestrated a determined effort to rapidly overthrow an intellectual society, create a war machine, and build the most draconian police state in recent history up until now. Now the United States of America can boast having the most intrusive and well-organized system of privacy invasion in the world, all under the facade of fighting terrorism. Yet it seems the very government that's fighting terrorism is robbing us of our rights, arming itself to the teeth, and amassing a brutal police state rife with the weapons of unimaginable capability. Now the announcement from a well-known Nobel Prize winner, a human rights activist and educator, Jim Garrow, testifies that a prominent general, who is a legend in the military and close friend, confided in him, saying that the U.S. government plans a full-scale war against the civilian populace over gun confiscation and the imposition of martial law. President Obama is already prompting the top military leadership for their reactions to being ordered to fire upon U.S. citizens. What would the response of U.S. commanders be to shooting civilians if ordered to? You can probably surmise that those Army officers who admit that they would not will find themselves on a fast track out of their careers, as was the close friend of Jim Garrow's. Inevitably, though, just as ATF personnel allowed gun walking to occur without blowing the whistle over Fast and Furious, and even threatened their very own colleagues who felt compelled to step forward and testify, you can bet there will be inglorious bastards who will enjoy the power of promotion and rank enough to order their men to gun down U.S. citizens brave enough to resist the federal government's tyranny. It is time to stop the denial. It is time to eliminate the party bias that allows people to blame conservative paranoia or conspiracy theories for these developments. Anyone with a reasonable grasp of history will know two things about the lessons of the past. Number one, every major overthrow of an eminent society destined for a radical ideological transformation in the last 100 years has been orchestrated with a preface of gun control. Disarming the general public was a primary objective that led to the rise of Nazi Germany, Stalin in Russia, Mussolini's control of Italy, and the Communist Revolution in China. These are facts. Number two, in every case, loyalists, those who refused to act against the general population, were either relieved of command or even executed as an expedient way to accelerate the process of normalization, as KGB disinformation specialist Yuri Bezmenov cynically put it. Put two and two together, the hour is growing late. If these developments are not disconcerting to you, then let me ask you a question. Why would the President of the United States of America, who already has been compromising this nation, why would he be trying to determine which military leaders would give order to fire upon our citizens and which would refuse such an order? In the military, there's an option to refuse a command if the officer determines that it is indeed sufficiently immoral to comply with. And gun companies refuse sales to state governments with strict gun laws. 6 companies have announced plans to stop selling any of their products to any government agency in states that severely limit the rights of private gun ownership. Disappointed with New York state lawmakers and other jurisdictions around the country who have passed strict gun control legislation, the companies, composed of firearm manufacturers, gunsmiths, and sporting good retailers, have announced these policies in the past week. Their various statements emphasize that such laws create a class of government employees with rights and a class of citizens without rights. Thus, they refuse to aid the enforcement of such inequality. The announcement read by LaRue Tactical, effective today, in an effort to see that no legal mistakes are made by LaRue Tactical and/or its employees, we will apply all current state and local laws as applied to civilians, to state and local law enforcement government agencies. In other words, LaRue Tactical will limit all sales to what law-abiding citizens residing in their districts can purchase or possess. Olympic Arms said that due to the passing of this legislation, Olympic Arms would like to announce that the state of New York, any law enforcement departments, law enforcement officers, first responders within the state of New York, or any New York state government entity or employee of such entity will no longer be served as customers. In short, Olympic Arms will no longer be doing business with the state of New York or any governmental entity or employee of such governmental entity within the state of New York, henceforth and until such legislation is repealed and an apology made to the good people of the state of New York and the American people. Extreme Firepower Inc., LLC, the federal government and several states have enacted gun control laws that restrict the public from owning and possessing certain types of firearms. Law enforcement agencies are typically exempt from these restrictions. EFI LLC does not recognize law enforcement exemptions to state, local, and federal gun control laws. If a product that we manufacture is not legal for a private citizen to own in a jurisdiction, we will not sell that product to a law enforcement agency in that jurisdiction. Templar Customs said, "We will not sell arms to agents of the state of New York that hold themselves to be more equal than their citizens. As long as the legislators of New York think that they have the power to limit the rights of their citizens in defiance of the Constitution, we at Templar will not sell them firearms to enforce their edicts." Templar Custom is announcing that the state of New York, any law enforcement departments, law enforcement officers, first responders within the state of New York, or any New York state government entity or employee will no longer be served as customers. York Arms said, Based on the recent legislation in New York, we are prohibited from selling rifles and receivers to residents of New York. We have chosen to extend that prohibition to all governmental agencies associated with or located within New York. As a result, we have halted sales of rifles, short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns, machine guns, and silencers to New York governmental agencies. Cheaper Than Dirt said, recently, companies such as LaRue Tactical and Olympic Arms have announced that they will no longer sell prohibited items to governmental agencies and personnel in states that deny the right to own these items to civilians. It has been and will continue to be Cheaper Than Dirt's policy to not sell prohibited items to government agencies and/or agents in states, counties, cities, and municipalities that have enacted restrictive gun control laws against their citizens. We support and encourage other companies that share in this policy. Second Amendment activist groups Gun Save Lives and Grassroots North Carolina are currently urging big gun manufacturers Sig Sauer and Smith & Wesson and Glock to halt their sales to government agencies within the states that have clamped down on their residents' right to bear arms. Weapon manufacturing companies have taken a stand against this tyrannical government. When will you take a stand? When are you going to say enough? When will you, the patriot, the American, when will you stand up and shout no, not in my country?